Hey ARMY, here's your BTS spot update. If you've ever wondered how 7 boys from South Korea went from sleeping on the floor of a tiny dorm room to selling out stadiums across 6 continents, stay right here, because this story is going to hit you in ways you are absolutely not ready for. And before we dive in, if you're new here, hit that subscribe button right now, drop a like on this video, and leave a comment below telling me when you first became an ARMY, because this community is something special and I want to hear your story too. Let's go back to the very beginning, and I mean the real beginning, long before the cameras, the sold-out concerts, and the Billboard #1s. In 2005, a man named Bang Si-hyuk founded a small music company in Seoul called Big Hit Entertainment. And when I say small, I mean it. Big Hit was nothing compared to the industry giants like SM, JYP, and YG that dominated the Korean music scene at the time. Bang Si-hyuk had a vision though, and in 2010, he found the first piece of that vision. A teenager named Kim Namjoon, known as RM, who was already making waves in Seoul's underground rap scene. Bang's original plan was to build a hip-hop group, so the next members recruited were fellow rappers Suga and J-Hope. Then came the vocalists and performers, Jin, Jungkook, V and Jimin, joining between 2011 and 2012. And here's something that most people don't know. Jungkook, the youngest member, was actually approached by 7 different entertainment agencies after his audition on a TV show called Superstar K. He chose Big Hit, not because it was the biggest, not because it was the most famous, but because he saw RM perform and thought, I want to be part of whatever that is. That one decision changed music history forever. These 7 boys trained together for up to 15 hours a day, living under the same roof long before they ever stepped on a stage. They were learning choreography, writing songs, studying music, all while surviving on almost nothing. Big Hit was struggling financially, and there were moments, real documented moments, where the company came dangerously close to shutting down entirely. Imagine that. BTS, the biggest group on the planet, almost never happened. And now here's the question you should be asking yourself. If they had given up then, what would the world look like today? Stay with me because the answer is bigger than you think. On June 13, 2013, BTS officially debuted on the Korean music show M Countdown, performing No More Dream from their first single album, Too Cool for School. The reception was polite, but far from explosive. In a K-pop world dominated by polished, perfectly manufactured idols from powerful agencies, BTS stood out for all the wrong reasons, at least according to the industry gatekeepers. They were from a nobody label. Their music was raw, hip-hop influenced, and they were rapping about things no K-pop group had dared to touch. Youth anxiety, societal pressure, the crushing weight of parental expectations. The industry looked at them and said, this won't work. And you know what? That rejection became the fuel that would eventually burn down everything standing in their way. The first year was brutal. Sales were modest and BTS had to fight for every single fan one at a time. But something extraordinary was quietly happening. The members were writing and producing their own music, sharing their real lives on social media in a way that no K-pop group had ever done before, and fans were noticing. They weren't just watching a perfectly staged performance. They were watching 7 real human beings with real fears and real dreams grow up in real time. The ARMY fandom was officially named on July 9, 2013, standing for Adorable Representative MC for Youth, and from that small community of Korean fans, something unstoppable had been set in motion. The real turning point came in 2015. BTS released the first part of their The Most Beautiful Moment in Life trilogy, known as HWJ, and everything shifted. The music was deeper, the storytelling was cinematic, and the fans were obsessed. By the time The Most Beautiful Moment in Life, Part 2, dropped in November 2015, BTS had achieved something remarkable. Their first ever entry on the Billboard 200 chart, debuting at number 171. For most groups, number 171 wouldn't mean much. For BTS, it was the first crack in a wall that no Korean artist had ever broken through. And cracks, as anyone who has watched BTS closely knows, have a way of becoming earthquakes. Now here is where you need to really pay attention, because what happened next is the part of the story that proves this was never just about music. In 2017, BTS crossed the Pacific. They won Top Social Artist at the Billboard Music Awards, beating out Justin Bieber, Selena Gomez, and Ariana Grande, and the Western music industry genuinely did not know what had just hit them. Their album Love Yourself, Her debuted at number 7 on the Billboard 200 in 2017, making it the highest charting album ever by a Korean act at that point. Their single DNA became the first K-pop song to enter the Billboard Hot 100. But still, the mainstream media kept asking, is this just a phase? Is this just passionate fans gaming the charts? They were about to get their answer, and it was going to be very loud. In May 2018, Love Yourself debuted at number 1 on the Billboard 200, making BTS the first Korean act in history to top that chart. And in August of that same year, they stood at the United Nations General Assembly in New York City. Not as performers, not as entertainers, but as speakers, delivering a message about self-love and mental health to world leaders and diplomats. RM spoke in Korean and the entire room listened. That moment was not a music moment. That was a cultural moment. That was the moment the world realized BTS was something this planet had genuinely never seen before. Then came 2020. A year that broke the world and somehow made BTS even bigger. On August 21, 2020, they released Dynamite, their first ever all-English single. And what happened next? It debuted at number 1 on the Billboard Hot 100, the first time in history a South Korean act had ever achieved that. Then came Life Goes On, which made history as the first non-English language song to debut at the top of the Hot 100. Then came Butter in 2021, which spent an extraordinary 10 weeks at number 1, making it one of the longest-running number 1 songs in Hot 100 history. Then Permission to Dance. Then My Universe with Coldplay. 6 number 1 hits on the Billboard Hot 100. 6. To put that in perspective, over the entire decade of the 2010s, Billboard confirmed that BTS had the most number 1 songs on the Hot 100 of any artist in the world. More than Drake, more than Taylor Swift, more than Ariana Grande. A group from South Korea, from a company that almost went bankrupt, had become the dominant chart force on the planet's most famous singles chart. And the records didn't stop there. They became the first non-English speaking act to sell out Wembley Stadium in London and the Rose Bowl in California. They were named the IFPI Global Recording Artist of the Year for both 2020 and 2021, 2 years in a row. They spoke at the UN General Assembly not once but 3 times. They launched a Love Myself campaign with UNICEF to fight violence against youth, raising millions for the cause. They were appointed as special presidential envoys by South Korean President Moon Jae-in. The South Korean government literally calculated that BTS generates more economic value for the country than some major corporations. As of 2023, they had sold over 40 million albums, making them the best-selling musical act in South Korean history. Their album Map of the Soul 7 became one of only 2 albums to sell over 500,000 copies in the United States in 2020, and it did it in a pandemic year when the entire world was locked down. But here is the part of this story that the numbers can never fully capture, and I need you to stay with me right here because this is the most important part. In June 2022, BTS announced that all 7 members would be fulfilling their mandatory South Korean military service, a requirement for all South Korean men. One by one they enlisted. An army waited. For nearly 3 years there were no BTS group albums, no group tours, no group anything. Just 7 individual men, rifles in hand, serving their country in silence. It would have been so easy for the world to move on. It would have been so easy to forget. But Army didn't. And on July 1, 2025, all 7 members appeared together publicly for the first time since their staggered discharges, reuniting via a Weverse livestream, and confirmed that they were coming back. The comment sections crashed. Servers went down. Fans around the world were sobbing in their cars, at their desks, in their beds at 3 in the morning. Because this wasn't just a band coming back. This was proof that some things are worth waiting for. On January 1, 2026, BTS reset all their social media accounts and sent handwritten letters to select fans around the world. The title of their new album was revealed, Arirang, named after the ancient Korean folk song that has been sung for centuries as a symbol of love, sorrow, and resilience. On March 20, 2026, Arirang was released, their first full group album since Proof in 2022, almost 4 years in the making. The lead single Swim debuted at number 1 on the Billboard Hot 100, their 7th US number 1 single. Pre-orders exceeded 4 million units within a single week. Their comeback concert at Gwangwamun Square in Seoul was exclusively streamed on Netflix and ranked #1 in viewership in 24 countries, entering the weekly top 10 in 80 countries. And their 2026 to 2027 world tour was announced with an estimated revenue of over $1 billion. From a company that almost couldn't pay its bills. From 7 boys who were told they didn't belong. From a group that the industry said would never work. $1 billion. So what is the actual story of BTS? It is not just a music story. It is not just a K-pop story. It is the story of what happens when you refuse to let the world define your limits. It is the story of 7 people who wrote their own music, told their own truth, built their own community, and in doing so built something that outlasted every trend, every critic, and every obstacle that stood in their way. It is the story of ARMY, millions of people around the world who found something real in a world full of noise. And maybe most importantly, it is the story of what it looks like when you love what you do so completely that the entire world has no choice but to stop and listen. Purple Heart, that's the story of BTS. From nothing to everything. If this video moved you even a little, please hit the like button right now. It genuinely helps this channel more than you know. If you're not subscribed yet, what are you waiting for? Hit subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss another video like this. And drop a comment below, tell me your favorite BTS era, your favorite song, or the moment you knew you were ARMY for life. I read every single one. Until next time, stay purple, ARMY Purple Heart.